أهلا السلام عليكم. Good evening Bahrain time. I'm just want to check if I'm audible or not because I'm using the airbag now. Please, who's joining now, please confirm that you can hear me or not. Otherwise I will take it off and I will use it directly. I'm just waiting Ms. Rana to join so we can start our conversation tonight about personal branding. Thank you, Zainab. Can you hear me? Because it's the first time I'm using the airbag, so I want just to confirm that I'm audible or not. Please just raise your hand or just tell me it's okay or not. Okay. I'm just waiting Rana to join so we can start our topic tonight about personal branding. أهلا أحمد. أهلا. Thank you Zainab. Tonight, inshallah, we'll talk about the personal branding. Do we need it? What's what they call it? What's the definition of personal branding and why we need it and how we can create our own personal branding? Just waiting for Ms. Rana to join so we can start with this one of the hottest topic. Yes, she's joining now. Yeah, أهلا. Please join with us. Yes. Okay, so we can start. Just give me a second. Thank you for the all audience, and within 60 minutes, inshallah, it will be fruitful. أهلا.
Hi,
how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Jafar? I'm really happy to be here.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
And thank you for your time, and thank you for your cooperation. And within 60 minutes will be a hot minutes. Why? Because I have very deep questions, and it will be fruitful for everybody joining tonight, inshallah.
I'm really looking forward
We will
to
start.
it. Yes, please.
Yes, I am in Japanese style. I'm very practical. I will start directly. Okay, based in some research, they're talking about, just I'm reading now, it's more than 50% of employers won't hire potential candidates without some sort of online presence today. Okay, the other fact said more than 50% of consumers have chosen to do business with a freelancer or company because of a strong, positive online presence. The source is careerbuilder.com. So that means we are in digital era. There is no another option unless you have to create your own presence, as personal branding or as a corporate branding, whatever that we call it, because we have a lot of debate about PB or CB. I mean, personal branding or corporate branding. Just before to jump to that facts, please define what's a personal brand. Let's come back to basic. What's a personal brand?
Okay, let's go back to basic. Now, in very simple terms, a personal brand is who you are, what you do, what values do you embrace, and how do you express those values to the audience or to the tribe that you're trying to create. This is like in very simple terms. So, yeah, you focus on the core of the person plus the core of their values to create the value proposition. And of course, you communicate that to a group of people who are the right group of people who will benefit from that business person, entrepreneur or company. That's in very simple terms. Yes.
No, I like the definition because, okay, if we have that definition of personal branding, what's the difference between personal branding and reputation? It's not same, or there's a difference?
No, the reputation comes as part of the personal brand. So many similarities between a personal brand and the business brand, in the sense that it's you define who you are and the values that you hold and represent through the work, be it a service or a product, and how do you want people to see you. So you kind of take control of that dynamic. And when you take control of your personal brand, you take control of the way you want people to perceive you, to work with you, to connect with you. So you are kind of controlling your reputation, you're controlling your image, and you're controlling the way people should think of you when they want to relate to you as a person, as a business owner, or to the company that you created or you represent. Yeah, so there's that similarity. Yeah.
Okay. So that's mean we're talking about perception. That perception, either you have to create it from your side, or it will be perceived from the other side, which is the people or the
Absolutely.
tribe or the audience. So we have two types of branding: the brand that you created and the brand that perceived or it is already in people's mind. So
Yeah.
if it's matching together, I think it will be the hit. You know,
This
it will
is
be
this is
whatever
this
that you
is the
promote
aim.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
Yes,
the aim.
this is the aim. Okay,
This
perfect.
is the aim
I have
because
three.
yeah.
Tell me.
No,
Okay,
because
go
just to
ahead.
add to that, because whether you do it or not, whether you intentionally do it or not, people will create an opinion about you, especially in this digital world. And we're all present digitally for entertainment purposes or for professional purposes. So there will be that perception about you, whether you want it or not. So the advantage of being in control is that you make sure that people have the right perception of you and the right understanding of who you are and what your values are. So this is where this is where the sweet spot is. This is where we want to reach with the personal brand. Yeah.
Do you think that everyone have his own personal branding? Because
Absolutely.
I think it's embedded as a DNA for each one of us. But there's like a couple of debates that saying when talking about personal branding, it's become like more in business oriented. So there's no authenticity about that because we put it in a business frame, in a business structure, in a blueprint that take the authenticity from it and make it more in business oriented. And maybe that a little bit lose of a little bit of what they call the spirit of personal branding. What do you think about that?
I don't, I don't really agree with that point. I'll tell you why. Because today, if you are an employer, you need to build a personal brand. If you want to find a job, you need to build your personal brand because you want to put yourself as the right candidate for a certain position in the company that you dream to work, with. And at the same time, as a company, they need to build their brand, a business brand, because it's not only for their target audience or their tribe or their clients, but it's also to recruit the right people, to make sure that people who want to work within that organization understand the values and understand the purpose of that organization's existence and, and operations. So there's both sides. I believe that when people think in that particular format, it's because we think that when we intentionally build a personal brand, it's because we need to, or we have a business, or we need to be present for business reasons. But in today's world, if you are a fresh graduate from university, instead of the old day, the previous years, you would take your portfolio, you would apply, you would write a CV, and you would have a one-on-one connection. Today, there's a research that the HR departments would do on the different candidates that they would consider before asking them for a formal interview. And that research happens online and happens by checking them out, not only on their personal accounts, but how do they showcase their genius or their work through their online presence, be it through a digital portfolio on a website, or be it on a professional account on LinkedIn or other kind of platforms. So it works on any way. It doesn't have to be only in business.
Yes, I remember that one of the TED Talk from Tala Weller, I think, she's talking about the future is personal branding. Even the corporates, they're referring to the personal branding between brackets, for example, influencers or individuals. So we become more individualism, even if we have corporate. And that's why some of reports, just I read it now, they say this big savvy corporation encouraging their employee to create their own personal branding. Why? Because of building the trust with the audience from them more than the one with the faceless company. So
Absolutely.
Still now we have another debate about, from that facts, I come up with this question. If I have a business, which strategy is better, to start with my personal branding, then to CB corporate branding, or no, we have to jump directly to corporate branding without the face? Because we have two scenarios. One of the scenarios, I have a lot of evidence, which is from the West, for example, United States. They have a lot of individualism direction. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, etc., etc. Whereas in China, just an example, we have, except just one, Jack Ma, of course. The rest we don't know them, but we know Huawei. Who's known the Huawei CEO? I don't know. I don't care. I don't want to know. Okay,
Yeah.
but still, I'm using Huawei, or etc., etc. So that's mean we have different methodology of business, either to start with personal branding or start with corporate branding. What do you think about it? Which strategy we have to use, or
Yeah.
depend?
You know, this is I think is a very key question, and I believe that today with the how can I say it, with the clutter that is happening in the market,
Yeah.
because of that clutter, it is a proven strategy to start with a personal brand in parallel with building your business brand. It has to work in parallel because especially in the early stages, the personal brand will feed into the business brand. People like to do business with people. People like to buy from businesses where they know who is behind it, especially in the early stages. At one point, they will separate, and that is when the business brand is strong enough to exist on its own, regardless of the personal brand of the founder or the group of founders in that case.
That's what's happened, for example, Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Just an example, he just stepped out from Amazon, you know, as a transition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now there are so many examples like that. Like even for example, in the fashion sense, you know, you have Sarah Blakely, who used to own, who still owns actually a brand of clothing, undergarment. She built her personal brand, and because of her personal struggles and the story of the brand and how she created it, that fed into the company's brand. And now today, when a woman goes and buys her product, they buy it because of its efficacy, not necessarily because of her, because at one point that separation happened and it made sense. But in the very, very early stages, it is, you know, your bets are higher when you build your personal brand. The bets are higher.
Yes. Yes. Another example from Arab region, for example, Zoha Hadid. It's an example.
Yes.
Okay. It's one of the outstanding figures, not just in Arab worlds, in all worlds. She's a global. Okay?
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
But we have another, what they call it, issue. For example, if I start my own business and I tie my business with my personal relationship, which is by logic, I can't start business without a trust. Trust cannot come from nothing. It comes from relationship. But maybe after 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, for example, I want to sell my business. So if I tied my business with my name, so we have another issue. So how we can sort this out? Because some people say you have to start from beginning. What in your strategy? What do you think after 5 to 10 years? You want to separate, so you have to start from beginning. You don't put your name in your business.
You know, Jaffer, there's so many examples out there where the brand is actually built even on the name of the founder, and it's sold to a bigger organizations. We have so many examples. For example, in the fashion world, you have almost most of the brands, you know, they are named after the designer, but the designer doesn't necessarily own it completely. There is a holding group that owns it, you know.
Maybe he's died.
Many of them, but many of them also are still alive, you know. So you also have that in the FMCG, for example, you know, especially companies like L'Oreal. They have certain brands. The founders are still alive. So I believe that today, especially when you're first starting, I know that a lot of people come from the school of I want to start to sell later on, and I understand. You know, I understand that kind of analogy and way of thinking.
And
it makes complete sense. Absolutely, it makes complete sense. But today, if we're talking specifically to entrepreneurs, to business owners, to people who have a brick and mortar, there is not how can I say, the probability of going that big or that wide when we look at the market space is not, you know, the proportions are not balanced. They're not the same. So I really think that today, let's concentrate on the core of the business. Let's concentrate on, you know, making it stand on its 2 feet. And then if an opportunity comes, or, you know, you want to, you know, put it globally by getting VCs on board, of course you can do that, you know, but let's start with the core in the beginning.
Sorry to interrupt you,
No,
because I have a lot of thoughts I want to share with you. Plus, we don't have to label our business in our name as brand identity.
Not necessarily.
For example, for example, I have a business. Just an example. I have a business XY company, but people, they knew me, and they come to my business because of me. Just an example. So I don't have to put my name, Jafar Company. No need for that. Because at the end of the day, they, in their mindset, they labeling me, they tied between my company's name and my persona, and my personal branding. So it will be easy going, even in the future, if I want to sell my business, or if there's joint venture, etc., etc. It will be much easier, especially in Arab region. Maybe you're talking about the East. Yes, the mindset's different. But here, no, okay, it's in, for example, Rana's name, company, no, it's different. Maybe this individualism, it's, you know, pop up. I think it's different mindset we have to understand, different culture.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the market dynamics. It depends on the region that you're in. And it also depends on what is growth, what is scaling for you. You know, you know, there's some people who find scaling in terms of size growth. So they get people on board, but they're still very much into their business. And some people, for them, scaling is selling out. So that's, I think that comes, you have it in your long-term plans, but, you know, things go in business. We know that there's nothing consistent. But again, for a lot of businesses, like when you gave the example of Zaha Hadid, she has a very strong personal brand, a global personal brand. And today, when companies or countries work with the Zaha Hadid organization, they know that there are people who work within her team. There are a lot of architects within that organization, but they have that belief and understanding that it's because it is her company, even if she's not there, it is her standards, it is her values, it is her vision. So she built a company, although it has her name on it, but the company is standing alone because at one point her personal brand mirrored and built that business brand. And now the business brand is an entity on its own that reflects her values, but that is also strong enough to proceed and grow on its own, you know? So this is the ideal.
Because she have the values, and from the values she create the culture. And from the culture, even if she's there's a tribe that can carry these values and will go and go and go even after 100 years. So absolutely. Because we create our own tribe. So we agree that personal branding is mandatory, is not optional, especially in digital era, and either for employee or for employers, for freelancers, for startup, for risk takers, because for traders, whoever. Because this personal branding, it will be the magnet for everybody to attract based on his values, to create, as you said, to create his own tribe. So for the employee, we will take it just a segmentation. So because our audience, like we have diversity, we have the startup and we have employee. For employee, how they can create their own personal branding within corporate. Maybe there's conflict, how they can understand that my personal brand is adding value to my corporate, to my company.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, companies more and more, they recognize the importance of that individuality for their employees. And they understand that today they have full control of their marketing strategy because they control their messaging. But at the same time, the employees are also part of that messaging because they represent the company outside, which is out of their control. So the more they give them the reins in terms of them building their personal brand, then that would reflect positively on them as an organization or as a big company. For the employee himself or herself, building their personal brand would reflect positively on the company that they currently work in, but it's also important for them to establish them as experts in their field within the industry. So if that employee is, let's say, in a financial department in a big organization, when he builds his personal brand, it reflects positively on the company. That means this company has recruited a very strong financial department. But at the same time, it shows him or puts him in a position where he is very he is seen as an expert in the field of finance within the industry, be it in the industry of the organization that he works in, or the industry of the finance industry in general, or within the market boundaries that he's in, or the region. So, you know, it becomes like a circle that kind of expands. So there's that advantage. Yes, there are people who might work in a company and stay for many years, but we've seen in the past, you know, couple of decades that the time frame of the turnover has kind of shortened. So we know that employees are there for a certain chapter, and then they're going to change that chapter, be it in another organization or on their own. They take that shift. So if they decide at one point that they are ready to take a shift of creating something on their own, they have that image and they have that presence within their industry. So when they decide to take that shift, they already a step ahead from somebody who's brand new, who's not known, who's not out there. And if they decide to take employment in another organization, their presence and their personal brand gives them more currency when they are negotiating with the other organization to join them, you know. So it kind of plays positively on both sides. The company wins and the employer.
We have a challenge, Rana, especially in our mindset, because if I am the business owner and Rana one of our staff, if Rana promote herself as a personal branding, I feel threatened. Why? Because maybe she will start her own business and take all my clients because of her presence. This mindset, unfortunately, it's happening in a couple of, you know, especially in our region. I don't know why. Because as I told you, based on this report, they're talking about the savvy corporation encouraging the personal brand within their employees. Whereas here in our region, I cannot generalize. Of course, there's exception.
Of course.
But in general, based on real stories and what I heard, they don't like that. They don't want you as employee to become in the circle, to be with the spotlights on it. Why? Because that they will feel that it's like a threat. That they don't want you as a gear within the engine. They don't want you as a star or a speaker. They don't want that.
Yeah.
So how we can change that mindset to the mindset of win-win situation?
Sure. Yeah.
I have to create that culture. If you're talking about yourself, that means you promote me as a company.
Absolutely.
Because you are one of my tribe. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, here's the thing. It's just a little point on the side. If there is that kind of mindset, there's a bigger issue there. If there is that kind of threat, or the employer, the owner, feels that kind of threat, that means there's a bigger issue in the structure of the actual company. Because if you feel threatened because of one employee, that means you're kind of building a business on specific individuals, and their loss or their growth away from the company is threatening not only personally you, but also the organizer. So that's another issue that actually needs to be solved. But if we look at an ideal thing where we need to have that kind of cooperation between management and employees, there are certain criteria that usually the communication department, the marketing department, the brand, HR departments, they usually have it with their employees. So as much as they kind of like tell their employees or encourage them to build their personal brands because it's beneficial for the company, they can also communicate certain guidelines, not restrictions, but guidelines. Like there are certain things that are, for example, confidential. There are certain things that are that should be spoken about when it from the company as a representative versus you as an experience, your personal experience in this company as an employee. There are, of course, certain guidelines, because we need to be also pragmatic in the sense that we need to also be realistic of the complications that certain employees might cause to the company if there are certain information that is miscommunicated out there. So there are certain guidelines. It's also very similar to the guidelines that a lot of companies use in their customer service communication. And, you know, so this is, of course, there should be some kind of framework, but the framework should be given with some kind of grace, and also the framework shouldn't be a restriction to the voice, the individual voice of the employees, you know. So this is where the dance starts, the tango, you know, the you know, the way where there is that kind of balance between me as an employee talking about the company, but also talking about my personal experience within that, versus certain things that the company should talk as an organization and has to come from the organizational official voice, you know. That's where the balance should be.
Yes, we have to, as you say, we have to manage between solo and tango.
Yes,
solo as individual and tango between you as individual with the corporation. And that's, I think it starts from two mindsets: the mindset of individuals and the mindset of the internal culture of the company. Each company, they have their own culture. That culture, it should be embedded within the employee without the structure written, or you have to read this guideline or tag to that manual. It's embedded, you know, authenticity, you know, without any lectures, without any terms and conditions. And that's why, for example, some of our authorities, without naming here in Bahrain, some of the employees, they name themselves based on that authority. You know, they as if like they're belonging to that tribe, okay, without anybody asking them, please do this or do that. This is one of the beautiful examples we have it here in Bahrain, and that's the win-win situation. That's what we have to create, to educate, to engage. And from that question, I will come up to the other one of the sector, which is fresh graduate students.
Yes.
Nobody talking about them. So after they graduate, how they can build their personal branding. Especially, I have my weird
advice
to them, which is after graduate, don't go to have a job. 3 months.
You don't believe in that?
Don't do anything. No, I believe in that. I believe encouraging them after graduate, don't get any job, at least for 3 months. Why? Number one, because you will go directly to a new community, and you will guide it by the boss. That's number one. Number two, you cannot open your eyes for the world. For example, for the designer, they have go to, for example, to Behance, to create a platform. They have to try many things. And based on research, after you graduate, maybe 3 to 4 years, I think, you will change your mindset. Oh, I'm not this interested in this. I don't interest in that. You know. So I think 3 months is fair enough for you to digest your passion, to digest your skills, and to discover before you're going to the box, which is company. Either we agree or disagree about that. So how we can draw the roadmap or the blueprint for a fresh graduate to build their own personal brand?
Great. I think that before the end of university or college, within the last year, I believe that this is the right time for them to start building their personal brand, in the sense that the domain that they're learning, their passion or their skill, plus where do they want to work? So these kind of companies or organizations that they want to work on, where do these companies exist online? So they find a place, which platform. This is the first thing. They choose a platform that is suitable for their skills and where they want to be employed, and start building their presence there. So if they are, so if they want to be corporate employees, LinkedIn is a great place. And this is where they should start. They should start by sharing their portfolio. They should start about having their own opinion about things that are happening in the industry. So it's not only mirroring what's happening in the industry. It's not, we don't like retweet what's happening, you know, the news or any of that, but actually having their own point of view, simple or big, their own point of view on certain things within their industry. And that's where their personality will come out. Their way of thinking will start to show to the outsiders or to recruiters, to companies that will kind of start noticing them. They have to start engaging with the people that they want to be either recruited with or within peers and other professionals within their industry. I highly recommend also for fresh graduates to find a mentor in the field that they want to work in, because with the help of a mentor, while you're building your voice digitally or your presence digitally, your mentor can also kind of guide you in the sense of helping you see different perspective of the industry that you're in. So when you're building your presence, you're building it with a wider perspective than what you learn academically. And at the same time, you start creating your own opinions. So that would be the best way for them to slowly penetrate the very cluttered environment that they're in by, number one, finding the right platform, number two, bringing their perspective to their industry, and the third thing would actually be to put out what's out there in their work. They have to have original work. If they are into photography, maybe 2 platforms would be great for them. So they need to build that portfolio by sharing their work, sharing the way they see it, sharing their photographic talent on it. And fourth is by starting connecting. And the connection doesn't have to be with my dream company, so it's only employees in that company, but also to start creating connections with people who are peers to them, building a tribe of peers, building a tribe of individuals who are in their industry or in complementary industries to them. And the wider they can go with that kind of networking, the bigger there are their chances to, number one, land their perfect job or land their perfect project if they want to do freelancing. So this is where, and this is where maybe they can decide within these 3 months that you were mentioning. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree about the three months or not, but I think it's what they call it in Arabic, استراحة محارب. So we have to have that rest, you know, to rethink again and to replan it. And so talking about the storytelling, the story, because people, you know, buy based in emotional, not in rational, and people like buy from people, as Simon Sinek say. So how we can create our own storytelling, either for individuals or for fresh graduate or freelancers or business owner. What's the storytelling that can sell? That's why they call it tell, don't sell. How we can create our storytelling in personal branding.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't want to, because we hear it a lot on Clubhouse, you know, the story has to be something, you know, so you don't need drama to have a good story. It doesn't have to come from pain. It doesn't have to come necessarily. It doesn't have to do that. It's your story. You own it. So your story should be, it's like your mission statement. Your story should be something that best describes you, that best describes the values that you believe in, you know, and those values will showcase not only your personality, but also will showcase what is unique about you as a person, a talent, a strength, a different perspective. It could be a challenge that you've gone through, and then, you know, it could be a dream, whatever it is. This is your perspective. You own that story. Now, this is where the selling part happens in a story. The more specific you are in your uniqueness, you know, and the more specific you will find your audience, the smoother the communication is, which actually makes a very good conversion, the selling part, you know, because today, if we look at certain domains, there's a lot of people in that domain, you know, consultants. There's so many consultants out there. Why would they choose you if you are a fresh graduate? So it's not like you have a portfolio of 15 projects and big names under your belt. You're just starting. It means that you have a certain perspective, you have a certain strength, you are you're solution oriented, or you are very specific. You like to work with certain domains, with certain industries, with certain things. So you have something that makes you not at par, but a step ahead of other people who have just graduated from you, in your point of view, in your story. So that is the core of the story. So it's like, as I said, it's just like a mission statement, except that it is more expressive, you know. And the more specific it is, the better the selling probabilities are.
Yeah, I remember a statement from Mr. Martin Neumeyer.
Yes.
He had that beautiful statement. He said that competitions need specialization.
Yes.
What I call it the laser beam marketing.
Yes.
So because of the clutter, so you have to be more specific. Specific, that means you have to be consistent, you have to be present, you have to have your, as you said, your own point of view is not just retweeted. All these 3 to 4 factors that will make your own personal branding. Personal branding is not about just put, for example, post or something, you know?
Yes. It's not about that.
Personal branding is not a presence in social media. That's a wrong definition.
Yes, that's correct.
As I think.
Yes.
The personal branding is either online or offline. You have to be consistent in your presence. You have to be authentic, and you have your own content. I have my own 7 C's that I want to share it with you. First C is you have to know your whys. Why you to promote yourself? You know, as start with why book, Simon Sinek. Cause, that's number first C. Then after that, it will be the content. What will be your content? What you will promote? After that, you have to be consistent. You know, just not one day off. After 3 months, you'll come back or show. That 3 C's. After that, you have to use your own right channel.
Yes.
It's B2B, LinkedIn, it will be TikTok, it will be, you know, and of course we have another debate about the 2 stars between Gary Vee and Seth Godin. We already talked about that before, if you remember, in the Clubhouse.
Yes.
So after the channel, you can create your own culture.
Yes.
Even people will read, oh, this is articles from Rana, even if they don't see your name.
The name.
Oh,
that's
this
correct.
is Rana style. You know,
correct.
so we come up with the culture. After that, this is the ultimate, which is create your own community, which is a tribe.
Yes.
So with these C's, I think it will be applied for individuals or corporate. And my question to you now is, what will be the steps for business owner to build their business owners? To build their own personal brand that don't conflict with their corporate, what I call PB and CB, personal brand and corporate brand. Sometimes it will be in parallel overlap. Sometimes, you know, we have to segregate. So how we can manage between these CB and BB, personal branding and corporate
and
branding.
corporate brand.
Yes, for startup and for business owners. Go ahead.
Sure. When you're at startup, it's most of the time it's a one-man show, or it's a very, very, very small core team. So the personal brand and the business brand is one and all, you know.
Right.
But when you're, let's say, a smaller business, maybe the number of people that are working within that business is a little bit different. So, you know, or when you're ahead, you know, a couple of years into, you're not a startup anymore, you're a new business, then it's a little bit different. But I think it all starts with, the personal brand has to start with purpose, understanding who you are in terms of your strengths, and having that clarity of how can you bring something different, or a new perspective, or a different style of doing things, if it's a service, or what puts your product at a different level. So that's the second thing, the actual thing that you need to communicate. And this is the brand clarity. And of course, you have to talk about your values, your beliefs, your perspective, your everything. These are the three main things. The second level, which is the cause that you talked about. The second level is the specific, how specific you can get. The more specific you are with your giving, whatever you're presenting, product or service, the more specific you are with who is it perfect for, the more smooth that line of communication will become. And therefore, your messaging becomes in sync, your communication becomes in sync, your marketing is in sync, your consistency is easier, because that's another big problem with personal brand, the consistency. And the more it is clear for you who you belong to and who belongs to you, and the tribe starts growing. So it has to start with the why, which is you, the core, then with the surrounding, and then the circle goes bigger. So I believe that these three things are the main thing when it comes to a personal brand, especially when you're starting up.
Can you repeat it again, because I'm writing it down here?
Yes, so it starts with the core. The core is the core is your values, your purpose, the clarity about your brand. The second circle is the specificity in what you give, product or service, and the specificity.
Which is clarity.
The first one is the clarity of your brand. This is the core clarity, the intention of your brand. Then the second circle is the specifics. So the specifics in terms of what you serve, what you give, product, service, and the specifics of your target audience. The more specific it is, the communication becomes clear and smooth. And then the third one is the communication. So your messages, your marketing, your consistency, all of the other factors that builds the personal brand. Because when you have the core, then there's other factors that kind of build it and take it to the next level. These become very easy to express, because there is consistency in the messaging and consistency in giving and communicating. So your tribe.
That's your CSC. I call
that's
CSC, which is core, specific, and
and community, if you want, or communication
and communication.
Community. So it becomes really easier. Now, this is perfect. The more we find that, how can I say? This is one of the biggest mistakes where startups do not focus on. You see a lot of focus on the brand identity. It is important. I'm not saying. Okay, the brand identity, the logo, the colors, the website, how do I look on certain social media platforms? When the core of it is not clear yet, even to the business owner, even to the startup entrepreneur. And what happens when you focus on that is that if there's any loopholes that have not been solved or been clarified, that part is clearly going to be affected, and it's going to be very visual and very clear to your audience who are receiving that perspective, because you're not 100% about your core. So this is where the mistakes happen, when we don't focus about that. Now, the beauty about a personal brand is that it grows with you. Today, as a business owner, as a startup, you start somewhere. 5 years from now, with the same business, with the size of the business, with the growth of the business, you're not where you were 5 years ago. Even your personal brand is not the same 5 years ago. It evolves with you. So the personal brand evolves with you. And how can I say, the rebranding is easier when there is a strong core than when you have to do a whole, you have to actually recreate a brand from scratch when you're doing, when you're still don't have a very solid core. You actually have to do a brand from all over again, because it was not based on something that is solid. So yes, brand identity is important, but it cannot be the core of your business. So
Yeah, of
this is
course.
for the startup.
That's
Yeah.
why I can share with you what I call the golden square. Okay.
Square. Okay.
You have a lot of
I love that,
which is
Jafar.
which is we have the brand identity, the first one. Why brand identity? Especially with the clutters, you have to be more specific. You have to be outstanding. Brand identity is not just the logo itself, the experience with all your things, physical or emotion. That's what I call brand identity. That's number one. Second, which is product or service. Whatever you have beautiful brand identity, but you have bad product or service, that not make sense. Third one, which is UX, user experience.
Absolutely.
Okay, it should be not okay. The product is beautiful, the brand is global, level, but for example, customer after service or when they delivering to it, or when I engage with the employee, they are very bad, or when I call them, nobody answer, or I have to wait 15, 20, which is especially for telecommunication companies. Okay, not all
Absolutely.
of them, of course.
Absolutely.
And the last one, which is the marketing. Without marketing, I don't know about you without marketing. So these four pillars, which is create your own presence. If one of them is, for example, absent, the others will be collapsed. And of course, the result will be there is no power of your presence for your brand. So brand identity, product and service, user experience, and marketing.
And marketing,
and that's
absolutely.
Come up with yeah, and that's leading us to the other question is there's a proverb they're saying that brand yourself before others do.
Yes.
So you have to start to put your label before others they put the label for you. How we can start doing that? How we can, for example, what's the main factors or main steps for corporate? Now we're talking about the fresh graduate, then we're talking about the startup, now we're talking about the corporate.
The corporate,
okay?
yeah.
Yes, either corporate, semi-government, government, small and medium enterprises, SMEs, how they can create their, if we can say that, their personal branding as a corporate branding tied up with their employees as a personal branding. Because there's an overlap.
There is an overlap, but the overlap happens on a very specific point, which is, for the employees and for the company. It's a very specific overlap. Usually with large companies, this is where the business plan starts. It starts with what exactly this company is all about. So what is the purpose of this company? What kind of transformation or what kind of service, what kind of experience, what is the product or the service that this company is providing? Okay, who is this company providing it to? So the more, again, specific as a company, the more specific is. And how do they, this is where the experience part is, how do they communicate all of that or connect with their audience? Like, how does the company basically does its business? So these are very, very much the most important points in the business brand. Now, the more clear it is, especially the bottom part, the more clear it is of who do they service, where, and how is that kind of communication going to be between the client and the company, the clearer the communication, the marketing, and everything around it is, which also will be with the overlap of the employer personal brand. This is where it is. So, for example, let's say Apple, okay? And I know it's a very cliche example, but Apple is very clear in terms of their mission. People understand that it's not just about computers or phones or iPads or all of that. It is about the world of Apple. It's the experience that you have over there. It's the community that they have created, so you want to be part of it. It's all about the expression. You express yourself, So they've made it really clear what their what the brand identity is, what is their unique selling proposition, not only based on technology, but based on experience, based on belonging, based on social status, if you want, in certain things, versus what their employees are talking about. Their employees' personal brand is not only they're talking about the technology. I'm in this department, I take care of iPads, this is the latest iPad, of course, but they talk about the creativity, expressing themselves, which is the values, the core values of what Apple is all about. This is where that overlap happens. This is where you see an Apple communication, be it an ad or a press release or an article about Apple, and then you meet an employee who talks about their personal experience, but the values are so much intertwined with the values of the organization. So this is where they both kind of meet. And this is where that sweet spot of the communication that happens from corporate to the employee and vice versa. This is where that sweet spot happens. So
and that's what we have to. Yeah, tell me.
No. I was saying, I hope that kind of, like simplifies it's, of course, there's a lot of moving parts and layers, but I hope that simplifies the vision that a lot of big organizations, especially government and semi-government, the ideal scenario for them, because this is how you build credibility. I can talk as much as I want about myself as an organization. What I want is that I want people to start talking about me, customer experience, great service, great product, solves a problem, very specific. My tribe knows that this is a community I created, but I also want, so that's one way of, building that credibility. And the people who work for me also talk about me and the values that I want people to know about me, which shows ethics, great environment, support to the employees, the benefit to the economy of the country, etc., etc. So this is where that sweet spot goes. Yeah.
Why I'm laughing, because of we have a real story happening with one of old clients here in Bahrain. They have a budget and they ask me, please do this campaign. I said, for who? For their employees, more than 200 employees. And I asked him just one question. Do your employee like the company or love the company or believe in your vision and mission? He said, I don't know. I said, thank you. So this, before we do the campaign, which is put your makeup in your face, we have to, digging more about your people, if they believe what you believe or not. So based on our survey, one-to-one focus group, the results is disaster. Why? Because more than 85% they are not satisfied for some basic rights, not for something for pampering them. No, for basic rights. So I come back to the CEO. I said, these are the results. It's up to you. So we cannot do, which is unfortunate, some of companies or corporations do the campaign to attract the external customer, whereas the internal customer, which is the employees, they are not satisfied. That's why Richard Branson said, my first customer is my employee. So you have to satisfy your customer, because your customer will be your ambassador. He will talk to his friends, to his family. Just imagine I'm working in a company. Okay, after the working hour, I just sit with you and I said, no, this company is bad, etc., etc. All the brand reputation and image will collapse. So we don't have that mindset of, number one, to create the tribe within our corporation. Number two, there is no conflict between personal branding and corporate branding, between PBB and CB, should be all merging together within one vision. And number three, which is we don't have sustainability of communication with our internal customers. It's just customer. They are, with our employees. They are employees. They are not part of our team. Even the terminology came from after the Industrial Revolution. After that, till now, we don't even change the terminology. Employees, working hours, all these coming from the Henry Ford after the conveyor belt revolution. So I think we have 5-10 minutes. I have another just 2 points I want to share it with you.
Sure.
There's many people talking about you have to find your USP, unique selling proposition, which is fine, but we forget another USB, which is, as Dee Bono said, unique state of buying, which is they call it human-centric design or human-centric thought. So you have to put your end customer, the external customer, in the center. Not you talking about me. No, I'm talking about you. So
absolutely.
how we can make balance between USB, which is unique selling proposition, and USB, which is unique state of buying. How can manage, especially for the personal branding, because many people when they present as a personal branding, a little bit of small ego, talking a lot about them, not talking more about their target audience, especially for the content.
Yes.
And that's what makes, for example, Rana stand out, because she's sharing free knowledge, free experience, free know-how with others without any charge. You already charge us, by the way. Why? Which is the time and trust, but it's intangible.
Yes.
That's part of the personal brand. So how I can make the balance between USP and USB?
Well,
USP and USB.
This is
USP. Yeah.
I love this question, because this is like the core of it all. It's like the heart of the hearts. Here's the thing. Today, you might be in an industry for 10 years. You might have worked with the biggest clients in it. But if you are trying to penetrate a new market or trying to get more clients, and you just talk about you as a person, what you did, then you're kind of missing that link where people it turns from just information and then they turn it to trust. There's that fine line between moving or converting person from, okay, this person is sharing information, to I actually trust the information that this person is sharing. The reason why I say that is because a lot of people think that you build your brand only based on the portfolio that you've done, when it cannot be the only thing. It has to come with you sharing the right kind of content, if I can put it that, the right kind of content, where you showcase how you are solving a problem, or connecting the dots, basically targeting a pain point or something that will add value to the potential customer that you're trying to attract. And that only happens when you don't talk about what you've done, but you share knowledge, you share expertise, you put your point of view in the mix. Today, more than ever, companies are working with coaches or consultants or even agencies, not only based on a portfolio. Great, so you have a great creative department or you have a great X department, but also on their vision, their reputation in the market, their kind of unique point of view when it comes to the industry or to tackle certain things. Because if we are just going to talk about a plug and play, anybody can have a plug and play solution. The information is out there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If we're just going to talk about, answering a very specific problem by having a certain solution, there are a lot of people who have the expertise with the same solution. But why would they work with Jafar versus somebody else? It's because he's not only a person who has the solution, but he has, XYZ that gives him more vision, more added value, better industry understanding, a lot of factors. That is for a person who has a service. For a person who has a product, it's the same thing. Because today, unless it is the customer that you're targeting is very price sensitive, then it's no longer for them at that particular point about brand. It's about the efficacy of the product. That's something else. But in general, people who are in the product-based market, the brand that they build is not only the actual product that they're servicing, but it's the list of factors that goes around it, which is, the background of how do they source for their product, where is it produced, how do they treat their employees, customer service, after sales service, you know, all the offers and the things that they kind of, the whole world around that particular product, you know. And that's why you see the highest conversion are people who have already bought from you versus attracting new people. You have you know, a great wealth when you get a person on board, because the chances of him buying again is much higher, and it's easier, and there is that credibility and there's that relationship. So this is where I think we miss the point when it comes to the uniqueness factor, be it in your unique selling proposition, your unique value proposition when it comes to a personal brand, and the USB that you've mentioned, which I believe was unique selling.
Unique state of buying.
Unique state of
Unique
buying.
state.
The other factor on the other side of the coin is, so that's you, and that's how you need to communicate. The other side is your customers, your clients, the tribe, the target audience, however you want to name them. But these prospects that you are trying to attract, many business owners or even organizations are missing the journey that customer needs to go to until they reach to the decision of actually buying from you. There is a whole journey there. There's a journey of knowing you, understanding what you are all about, or what's your company all about, understanding your product, understanding how your product or your service actually can add value, solve a problem, etc. And then comparing it and checking reviews and checking things and checking everything about before they actually come and decide, you know, that's the perfect.
It's a little bit long journey. Yes.
It's a long journey. So when you're bombarding with a certain kind of messaging that is just about you, you're not meeting them at their where they are in their journey. You're not there. You're just focused on a certain part where people, if they skip it, there's no turning back to, you know, catching them any other way. They've already skipped over you. They've gone somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's why, for example, most of our advertising, we're talking about our products, we're talking about our services, but we don't talking about their needs, their desires. So that the different mindset between talking about your product and service versus about your customer needs and desires. That's what the difference between what they call finding their meaning and finding the product's feature and benefits and competition, etc., etc. We have another level of communication. I know we can apply that in our personal branding, and just we have to close now. I believe that we have a golden opportunity with the digital era, that every one of us, even a small country or a small village, small house, you have internet and you have mindset, that's it. You can create your own personal branding, because all of the platforms are free. You can, you know, start from Instagram. For example, now I'm building my personal branding with Rana. Just an example. Live on Instagram, free of charge. You will not charge me, of course. Okay, so all this content, we spread it around, spread the knowledge, spread the experience, and especially for the university students, they have the golden opportunity to open their minds, to see what's the platform available, reading more about personal branding. Even go to the LinkedIn. There's a short course about the personal branding. We have the MOOC, massive open courses, which is available now. You have just to pick up one of them. Domestika, Udacity, Coursera, zillions of knowledge. It's not about knowledge now. It's about how you utilize the knowledge for your purpose. Last word, Rana, from your side, please.
The last word. Yes. My advice is, and I think especially here in the pandemic, it kind of taught you something, that there is a bigger and an easier way to create your own economy. I'm not saying everybody should be entrepreneurs, but there is a chance for you to create your own economy. And that's the first advice. The second advice, which is today with social media, with the internet, with all the different platforms that you've mentioned in terms of digital platforms, they have democratized the way that you consume information and the way that you share your voice. It's a two-way road. So we no longer, as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, as startups, need huge budgets to get our message across, to talk about us. We have tools in our hands that are fairly reasonably cheap, you know, in comparison to the way it used to be before, you know, 20 years ago. So creating your personal brand is something that will benefit you, be it if you are a student, if you are an employee, if you decide to take a shift, or if you have already taken a shift and then you decide to detour from there. It can grow with you. A personal brand is something that represents you when you want to get your message across out there. And lastly is a personal brand is something that it's going to happen whether you deliberately take control of it or not. So why not take control of the way that you want your reputation, your image, your voice to be perceived, understand, and connected. So I would definitely end with that.
Perfect. I will end up with the 3 I's, which is I just had the presentation before talking about personal branding. The personal branding, they have 3 I's, which is the first, inspire, then influence, then to create impact. If you don't have none of these, you don't have personal branding. Whatever the tools you can use, whatever the platform you use. Thank you, Rana.
Thank you so much.
Because you are inspire, you influence, and you create impact on us.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
time.
Thank you
for your experience. You are a very humble person, by the way. With all that experience, with all that knowledge. Thank you again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for the audience. And see you maybe again with another talk with
Absolutely. I'd love that. I'd love that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.